Pretty much everyone wants a mechanical keyboard nowadays, you know, with all the clickety-clack switches. But that's not enough anymore, because you don't just want the clickety-clacks. You want fancy RGB lighting. That's what you want. So enter IKBC, which apparently stands for the keyboard that cheers you up. IKBC is a Taiwanese brand that makes mechanical keyboards, and this is the F108. It's a full-size RGB mechanical keyboard with individually lit keys, and it comes in brown, blue, and red switches. And I took the reds because after using blues for a couple of years, I wanted to try the red switches, which are linear and not so tactile and not so clicky. And as you can see here, they are using Cherry MX key switches. Inside the box you have the keyboard itself, a key puller, and some extra keycaps that come in blue and red. I don't really like how they look, so I'm just going to use the default keycaps. The cable is braided, so that's a nice touch, and it's only one USB plug, which means there is no USB pass-through or anything of that sort on the keyboard itself. Now the interesting thing about this keyboard is that it actually has no software. So all the RGB lighting is actually controlled through presets on the keyboard itself. So by pressing the function and the F4 key, that will activate various RGB lighting modes, which you can cycle through depending on what kind of stuff you like. Now of course this means you do limit the amount of customizability you have with the RGB lighting set, and you can't do all these fancy ass patterns that you might otherwise be able to do with like a Corsair RGB keyboard, but it does save you the hassle of having to install any third-party software. So you can't really do any fancy patterns or make it react to whatever exe you launch. But for me, I do enjoy the simplicity of not needing to install additional software and just enjoy an RGB wave. This is also probably the only keyboard I know of that comes with a dedicated calculator button, which is a little bit interesting, but kind of useful nonetheless. There are situations where you do just want to pull out the calculator really quick. Of course, it's got the standard mute, volume up, volume down buttons, but no other media keys. But for anyone looking for macro keys, unfortunately those are not available on this keyboard. So it's just good enough for you to get by, and then you do have to just play around with it a little bit yourself, especially with like selecting which RGB pattern you'd like to have on your keyboard. So one thing I really enjoy about this keyboard is that the keycaps are actually PBT double shot keycaps. They feel quite textured, and they definitely feel very comfortable to type with. PBT also means the keycaps would generally last longer compared to ABS plastic, which might show a little bit wear and tear after a couple of years of use. So now the question is this keyboard worth buying? Well, the short answer for me is yes, because I found this at a couple $100 cheaper than the next RGB option, at least in my local currency. Second thing is I really like the PBT keycaps because they feel great and it seems like they would stand the test of time. The build quality is pretty solid. There's pretty much no flex when I try to bend the entire structure. So definitely plus on the build quality as well. I'm actually pretty damn satisfied about how this keyboard turned out. It's great. The lights look awesome. You can of course adjust the brightness, the speed, and all that stuff. The additional keys maybe could have used some tweaking. Maybe a media keys would be better than just volume and calculator, which again, calculator is still a little bit strange for me. But I have had use for it, so that's cool. So if you are in the market for an RGB keyboard with great build quality, PBT keycaps, and no software attached, the IKBC F108 is definitely a good option for you. But if you want something that has a bit more software to it, macro keys, controlled RGB lights and stuff like that, you might want to look at Corsair, Cooler Master, or Logitech keyboards instead. They will probably cost you a couple of bucks extra, but of course you'll get that top-notch Logitech or Corsair software that allows you to control the RGB lighting based on what exe you're running, based on which game you're playing, and all that cool stuff. But for me, I just wanted a simple RGB keyboard with nice key switches that would stand the test of time and has solid build quality, and I definitely found that in the IKBC F108. So that's my take on it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments down below. If this video helped, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.